My name is Johanna Mathieu, and I'm an assistant professor at the University of Michigan in the Department of Electrical Engineering and Computer Science, and my expertise is the electrical power grid. So power grids work by balancing supply and demand. So consumers want to consume electricity, and big power plants are producing electricity. And at all times, power has to be balanced, meaning that the power plants are producing exactly as much power as the consumers need. There's a tiny bit of electricity storage, but there's not very much at all. So basically the power plants are responding every single time you turn on a light, a power plant has to ramp up its production. So to make power grids more sustainable, we're adding more wind and solar to them. However, that's challenging because these sorts of resources can't produce when we want them to produce power. So instead of requiring them to change their output and their operation, what we're doing instead is looking at the loads. So that's like your air conditioner, your water heater, your refrigerator. Can we make those flexible in terms of when they consume, so they consume power when wind and solar are producing? And so there's a lot of research going on right now to understand how best to do that in a way that minimizes the inconvenience to customers. And it's a really interesting optimization and control problem that we solve in electrical engineering. And we're developing innovations in terms of algorithms and also hardware and software to enable this. So the goal is to use the resources we already have in the network to solve this problem of balancing supply and demand at all time. And a lot of folks are also interested in incorporating energy storage into the system, so that could mean batteries. People talk about things like the Tesla Powerwall, or using electric vehicle charging to basically provide battery support to the power grid. And that's another solution. Currently, batteries are expensive, so in addition to looking at batteries, we're also looking at other types of technologies that can help us deal with the issues associated with intermittent power sources like wind and solar. So there's a lot of different thoughts on what a sustainable power grid could look like. One vision that's sort of emerging that a lot of people are starting to agree with is that the power grid could support all of our energy needs. So that would mean electrifying vehicles, electrifying heating, electrifying industrial processes that currently use fossil fuels. So in that sort of case, the power grid is providing all of the energy needed in our system, which makes it much bigger and more difficult to deal with. But that also allows us to utilize renewable energy sources that are emerging as relatively inexpensive, like wind and solar power. That's a grid that's much more difficult to control and operate because of the challenges I've mentioned before, because those resources aren't as controllable as traditional power plants. So you'd need to do things like couple it with storage and also couple it with flexible loads and other sort of sources of flexibility to enable supply and demand to be balanced at all times.